Yeah, I think we're all ready.
Are we live?
We're live.
We're live.
Okay, we're live. All right. Hello to all who have taken their time to watch today. It's 3:00. I mean, I'm the chairman of the policy committee. This is a policy committee meeting for June. It is obviously June 8th, 2021, and I am very.
I'm gonna have to get closer to a microphone. I can't hear anything.
Ooh.
Right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I hear it coming from there. There's no sound.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Hear you fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Thomas, can you hear me? This is Barry.
Well, I can hear you, Barry.
You can? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I guess I'll start over then if we're ready. This is the policy committee meeting for June 8th, 2021 for June. It's 10 after 3 and I'm about to call the policy committee meeting to order. We appreciate everybody that's taken their time to come, to come in and listen to what we have to say here today regarding the policies that we plan to deal with here today. The first item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order, which I'm doing now. It is 3:11 and we're calling the meeting to order. Next item is to call on Susan for me to do the statement of announcement, please.
Thank you. A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the June 8th, 2021 Policy Committee meeting was distributed June 1st, 2021 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, ma'am. If anybody just heard the airplane that went over, that's the sound of freedom, which happens quite a bit around where down here where we are. That was what that was. If anybody wonders, it should be gone now. You should be able to hear me better. Or hear me fine, I would think. The next item on the agenda is the invocation, which I'm going to give very quickly, if everybody would allow me. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to, in some small way, make the lives better with those of disabilities across this state and that we serve, and we are thankful for those that we serve, and we are thankful to be a part of the organization, this organization that does serve them. We ask that you would be with us throughout this meeting and give us the wisdom and knowledge that we would need to do what is right for not only those with disabilities, but the taxpayers of the state. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. If I don't hear an objection, the agenda is going to be adopted according to pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order. Do what? I was just saying that pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order, we're going to do it. We're providing this meeting by unanimous consent, which means that if I don't hear an objection, we're going to move on once I go with each item on the agenda. So, but if you do have an objection, please feel free to do that, and we'll have a motion in a second, just like we normally would. The first item on the agenda, like I say, is adoption of the agenda, and I will give it about 3 seconds. If there's no objection, the agenda is adopted. The first item on the agenda under new business is since this is the last meeting of the fiscal year, we're going to give a quick update on the policies that we've completed, and I would ask Susan to do that if she would, please.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to the committee and the commission for their hard work on all of the policies, directives, and standards that have been completed over the last fiscal year. As Commissioner Melford's mentioned, this is the last month of the fiscal year 21. At the beginning of fiscal year 21, the committee adopted a projected list of documents that would be reviewed. And on that list were 45 documents. We split that up because there are 180 total documents divided across a 4-year review period, gets you to 45. So to date, 53 documents, again, the goal is 45, so we're at 118% of our goal. 53% are completed. We had 18 documents that were on the original projected fiscal year 21 list completed, and then through committee added 35 additional documents to get to that 53 total. We also have 13 additional pending documents at this stage of fiscal year 21 that are in the process of revision and posting for review, and will hit the commission agenda when those are finalized. So we're well ahead of the committee's goal to do 45 per year, and so that's something that should certainly be celebrated. Also, I wanted to note, as we amended that list, the committee amended that list in January of 2021. I just wanted to update it that in the second half, staff did recommend a deferral of 7 documents to fiscal year 22, so we've adjusted for that. And that was just because of competing priorities with, our turnover of staff, and also just kind of the programmatic needs of reviewing certain documents and making those a priority over others. So those will move to the fiscal year 22 list. Also of note, a directive approved through the committee for referral to staff, 707 DD, the Employment First Directive, has completed its external review period, which expired June 3rd. No comments were received. So it will be presented to the commission for final approval in June, so next week, I believe. Also, Directive 36801, which is Individual Service Delivery Records Management, has been posted for external review, and that was referred to staff through committee, and it will expire June 21st. We've already started receiving some comments on that directive, which have been really helpful. So my last announcement with this revision is that through our disposition of where we've been and where we're going, I'll just recall to you all that a whole package of information security directives were compiled, and then ultimately some were marked obsolete. It was all compiled, and all the content was compiled into one directive, and the commission approved that some months ago. So through our kind of study of where we are and where we're going, we determined that there were 2 additional information security directives that are now in that master directive that can be marked obsolete based on staff recommendation. So at this time, I would just ask that the committee would pass those forward to the commission to mark obsolete, because like I said, they've already been incorporated in the master directive. And those are 36715 DD. It's a mobile device security policy. And then 36717, which is a human resource and security awareness policy. So again, all that content has been put into the master directive. So staff are recommending that those can be marked obsolete. So if the committee would like us to do that, we can have those shared with the commission and have that appear on the commission agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, if there's no objection, we're going to bring those to the committee for to be marked obsolete. Again, if I hear no objection in about 5 seconds, I'm going to move on. Feel free to object if you'd like to, but hearing no objection, those will go to the those will go to the committee to be marked obsolete. The next item on the agenda relates to the document completion list that we will have for the July 13th meeting, which is basically our projected policies that we plan to go through over the next 6 months after this meeting is complete, and for basically for the beginning of next year. As I said, this is the last meeting of this year, so that'll be the first meeting of next year, and so we'll have a list of which ones we want to work through for the next 6 months to allow everybody to know. There's a lot of directives and priorities that we have about waiver service standards and other things. The executive limitations policy will likely be looked at again. It's looked at all the time nowadays, pretty much, I mean, not all the time, but quite often. And so anyway, we'll talk more about that at the next meeting. Is there anything about that I've missed, Susan, that needs to be said?
One thing I might just add is per the commission policy on committee procedures, which is 807, it defines all of the standing commission committees, and it also suggests that each committee at the beginning of each fiscal year review their procedures to make sure they're in line with how the committee intends to function for the next fiscal year. So I think the advisement is that every committee chair kind of take a look at those with their committee, and that as Commissioner Melfrist may have recommendations, if I'm assuming he may continue to be the policy committee chair, or whoever is in his place, that committee chair kind of bring forward any procedural recommendations for changes that will go into the policy committee procedures. So that could be addressed in July.
We will quickly review that in July. I don't see any changes to it right now, but we will review that, and we will ask that the chairman of the commission would ask the rest of the policy committee chairman, the committee chairmen to do the same at the next meeting. The next item on the agenda is to let y'all know that there are no items to recommend for retention by the policy committee or referral to another committee at this time. So there's no referral to any other committee right now. And so so we move on then to section 1 of this agenda, which is the primary thing on this agenda today, which is the outside employment policy. I do think it's whoever actually helped with this did a very good job overall with this policy. I've read it thoroughly, and it's well, it truly is well written and well done, because it does good with protecting us in the event that somebody gets a second job. I'm not. I know this has been going on for a long time. I'm not exactly sure why we need a separate policy for this, but if we do, this was a well-written one to have. But the only thing about it that I wanted to bring up to the committee, not necessarily to change anything, but to bring it up to the committee and to talk about regarding this matter is, and obviously everybody else will have their turn when I get finished, but who would like one, but I'm just not sure that we shouldn't have some sort of if somebody is rejected for having outside employment, I'm not sure they shouldn't have some sort of a review process by somebody or by a committee to, if they feel they're being rejected for a wrong reason. Obviously, the primary reason to be rejected is because they are in.
Hey, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
thank you here. Before we get into changes, do we have somebody explain what this thing does? What does it do?
Sure, the outside. Susan, you do better than me with that. I know what it does, but you do better with me than that. So go ahead and tell him what it does.
So this is actually a human resources policy, and of course, Constance, as general counsel, had a lot of input in this directive. So I'll start and maybe she'll finish if that's okay with you. Okay. So the directive sets forth a policy that stipulates what sorts of outside employment would be allowable for people who have primary employment at DDSN. So it's typical for state agencies to have some sort of documentation about what is permissible and not permissible for outside employment, because I think the goal is to avoid any sort of perceived conflict of interest or any overlapping of the two kinds of employment situations onto each other. And so it kind of sets about a purpose, policy, general guidelines, and establishes a procedure for review. So individuals would document their existing outside employment once this directive would go in place, get it approved through general counsel. If it cannot be approved, then they will have to terminate their outside employment situation. And obviously there'll be a thorough review in place. So it's possible that individuals who have secondary employment, outside employment to their primary position at DDSN would not be able to continue.
Is the idea so that there won't be a conflict of interest? I mean, if an employee, if a DDSN employee, not making enough money or something, and cuts grass on the weekends, that obviously is not a conflict, I would think. But is the DDSN directive substantial enough to eliminate minor things like that, or items that potentially could have a conflict?
Well, this is Constance. The outside employment directive addresses any possibility of conflict. So while someone may be
say that again.
It addresses potential conflict. So while it's obvious that a DDSN employee is not in conflict of their employment as far as it doesn't conflict with their duties if they're like cutting grass, but the outside employment policy, the purpose is, for example, we may have someone who working hours for DDSN is 8:30 to 5. Well, they decided that they want to make this extra money, and then they go and start cutting grass during their working hours. So that could potentially be a conflict if it interferes with their ability to effectively do their DDSN duties during their DDSN duty hours. So some things are obvious conflicts that people just can't do. Some things are a little bit more subtle. Once it's vetted, you see the conflict. Some things it's not a conflict on its face, but it could become a conflict if they start interfering with their duties at DDSN.
Like for instance, if they started a company and actually had an interest in a company that's doing bidding,
correct,
with DDSN for whatever,
correct,
then that might create a conflict, right? Yes,
that's correct.
I could okay, so all this does is says what, that a supervisor looks at what they're doing and can say yay or nay to the outside employment?
No, it doesn't stop as low as level as a supervisor. So I mirrored it after. So let me back up. When I got here, this agency didn't have an outside employment policy, which I was shocked at because most state agencies have outside employment. So there was no way for us to vet conflict. So we very well may have individuals right now who have outside employment that is in conflict with their current employer here at DDSN. So we don't allow the supervisors to approve it. It's vetted through the general counsel's office. So it's vetted in the general counsel here at DDSN is the ethics officer. So the employees are required to submit an outside employment request form. On that form, you fill out certain information, and then the ethics officer / general counsel will make the determination and say, this is approved for outside employment, this is not approved, and here's why. They won't just say, you're not approved or you're denied without giving a reason why. And in that process, when they submit the form, there may be questions that need to be asked of the employee from the ethics office, like they may not have filled the form out as detailed enough. And there may be questions that I need to ask or whoever's in the general counsel role or the ethics officer role, to vet the employee to see if the employment constitutes a conflict of interest. So we don't just let the supervisor do it.
Will this apply, to situations where somebody already has outside employment? Everybody's gonna have to kind of clear this,
Yes.
with the office?
Yes. So what?
I'm taking it then that the reason for this is that since your, entrance into the interim position, I presume I'm talking to Constance.
Yeah.
Is because maybe you've seen some question marks and you're wanting to clean it up, is that it?
Well, not just when I got into the interim position, when I got here, and I started reviewing HR policies, and I realized there were several policies that are standard for state agencies that DDSN did not have. One of those being outside employment, one of those being an anti-harassment policy. So we then decided that we need to make sure that DDSN had those policies on the books.
Okay, you're trying to do stuff you've seen in other agencies.
Yes, that are needed for this agency.
They're confused.
Yes.
Okay, if somebody currently has,
I understand, thank you, that's all the questions I had.
okay, sorry, if this is Barry, if somebody currently has outside employment and we need to review to make sure they're not a conflict of interest, because that's the primary reason they'd be rejected, I'm assuming, is because there's some sort of conflict of interest with the job they currently have and affecting somehow their outside employment. So if they currently have that, then that goes through the general counsel's office to get approval. If they currently have an outside employment, and then if they don't have an outside employment now and they want one 3 months from now, then that would go through the supervisor, or that would go back through the legal counsel's office, because I thought it specifically said it was going through their direct supervisor.
No, everything goes to general counsel's office for approval. So people who currently have outside employment that we're not aware of, what we propose is once the policy takes effect, they have 30 days from the date that the policy takes effect for them to submit an outside employment request form. For people, someone down the line, 6 months from now, they decide, I want to go work at, let's just use Kroger as an example. I want to go work at Kroger on the weekend. That person will then be required to submit an outside employment request form. We've set up an email box so that we will have an email box that's designated just to outside employment requests. Those will be sent directly to the general counsel's office, and then there would be a process internally that the general counsel's office uses to approve or just not approve the outside employment request.
Okay. That was confusing me a little bit then in this policy, because I thought it was different. But I thought half of it was, I thought if you already had a job, anyway, I already said it, I think. But the next thing is that I would say is that if you're going to give that responsibility to one person, not that you wouldn't be a great one to have it, but the one before you would not, I don't think would have been a great one to have that responsibility. And so in the interest of it could be somebody else at some point, I think that we would want to consider having some sort of a review process at the very minimum by the executive director if that person was rejected and they wanted to ask why, to have more information as to why, to have somebody else to look at it to make sure that there was a true conflict of interest. And so maybe there should be some paragraph in there that says that if this person is rejected for the reasons that the legal counsel puts down, that at least the executive director should review it and put their stamp of approval on your rejection, or whoever the general counsel is. But I personally think it should say general counsel instead of, or what did you say, or somebody else? Because we don't have that or somebody else, and unless we have that or somebody else, it needs to say the general counsel. If that's what
it says the general counsel right now, but I was saying that the general counsel The only other alternative in my mind for who would be vetting these conflict of interest would be the ethics officer. Here at DDSN, the general counsel and the ethics officer are the same person. It's the same entity.
Well, then let's just say the general counsel until and if we ever get an ethics officer then.
You are both.
I am both unless the agency decides at some point that the general counsel won't be the ethics officer.
Okay.
And we have a whole separate ethics office. But right now it says general counsel. It doesn't mention the ethics officer.
Okay, all right, okay, that's fine. That's
think
fine
what
as
you
long as that's the
proposed
case. I didn't see that either, and I just want to make sure that was the case. Okay, that's fine. But anyway, that would be my proposal. I'm not overly upset either way, but it just seems to me there needs to be somebody else to look at it if the general counsel says this is a conflict of interest, just to see if it is. And the only logical person other than a committee, like the employment committee that we have on the commission or the policy committee or some other committee, the only other thing I could think of that would be logical and quick would be a review by the executive director. But that's just my thought on it, and I just wanted to hear what the other members of the committee thought.
Not directly on the committee. I do kind of agree with that. Sorry.
Ms. David, the only observation I have is that the employee, it should be at the request of the employee to have a review. He or she, employee who has been rejected by council to have outside employment, you're requesting a review, and the review is final by the director. That's just to give them one more bite at the apple to make sure that there's I don't think that there would be prejudice, but at the same time, if you're telling somebody they can't work, that seems awfully, I just think there needs to be one more level. If council says one thing and then the director says, nah, this is not what we have in mind. This isn't a conflict. But that's just off the top of my head, Constance. I'm willing to back off that if you think that's wrong.
Just on my experience, that it's not done that way in any other agency. But if we have to do it, what y'all are proposing is a reconsideration process, basically. Like in the grievance appeals, we have steps so they can then appeal to their supervisor, and then they can ultimately, the director has final say so. If we have to put a reconsideration process in, Commissioner Thomas, I think what you propose is the most appropriate way to do so. I don't think standing up a committee to do so is appropriate because the commission only has one employee, so they couldn't very well be involved in these type of personnel decisions. But the director could say, if someone makes a reconsideration request, they could say, based on my review, I think that your outside employment should have been approved or disapproved. And then the director will have the final say so.
Yeah, you wouldn't have 2 or 3 different people look. You just have the executive director look, and that would be that.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you just see, and then so then that would give them an option to have a review if they needed it. But they'd also have to give a reason for their review. A reason why they thought that they were not a conflict of interest and all that. So they have to write it. We'd have to have a review form to where they would have to fill out and say, this is why that I don't think this is a conflict and all that. They can't just say that. I don't want just anybody just being able to review everybody that was rejected. But they need to have a reason. If they don't have a reason, then it don't need to be reviewed by the executive director.
Correct.
It's the way I would look at that. So the only thing we need to do in this case, I would think, would be to add a sentence or 2 in there, and then have a form that says if you want to have a review, this is, you need to give your reasons for review and yada yada.
Yeah.
That'd be the only thing I would have to add to this document. Does anybody else have anything to say about that? Does anybody have an objection? I guess I would say to us having a review by the executive director if needed.
This is Commissioner Rawlinson. I agree with you guys. I think we do need to have some kind of follow-up if there is a problem. Now, let me just clarify real quick, just in my mind. We are going back and checking all the current employees with this. Is that correct, Constance?
Correct.
Okay, now I've got a question. Legally, you obviously check this to make sure legally we can do all of this and without any problem in retro. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that. That's all I need.
For what it's
Thank
worth,
you,
I'm
Dan.
in agreement with Barry.
Go ahead, Gary.
Just saying, although I'm not a voting member of the committee, as far as the commission goes, I agree with your assessment, Barry.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. Okay, then we need to add a sentence in there to be approved by the commission. We wouldn't necessarily have to do it if we need more time, we can approve this added sentence and or form for the next policy committee meeting. I don't know that this is an urgent matter that has to be done this time, or we could, if you think it could be done right away, we could bring it to the commission for approval at the next meeting. I mean, at the next commission meeting. It depends on how we want to, because I know that nobody else is planning on this wording, so I don't have an actual wording for it at this time. I don't know if anybody else does or not as to exactly how this would read. Do you think you could do that within a day or two, Constance, or you think you just need another month for us to bring it back to us? And
Well, I mean, yeah, we could do that. I mean, all we're adding is a reconsideration process. So we can add that in 2 sentences. So I can do that in the next couple of days. I probably can, once we get done here today, I can do it today.
okay, we'll just add that in. We'll then add that in there and then put and then give us another form that says what their, give us a form that says what their reconsideration form would be and how they would show that they needed reconsideration, because I'd want them to be able to show they needed to be reconsidered. I wouldn't want everybody that was rejected to say, I don't know what percentage of people are rejected, but I wouldn't want just everybody that's rejected to say, well, immediately I want to, I want to review unless they have a reason.
And then
So
Commissioner, we would typically, any directives go out for 10 business day external review. And that gives not only, I know this applicability is for staff, it's not for providers, but it also gives, staff an opportunity to read it and ask questions that might suggest further edits. So I know you were talking about bringing it to the commission, but if you're making the determination not to put it for external review, I just wanted you to be aware of what the procedures usually include, which would be external review.
I guess we could put it out for external review. I don't see this as an external review document. I think it's really an internal one. But Constance, you think this needs to put out for external review?
No, I don't see how this needs external opinions on it. It's only related to internal folks.
That's what I would say.
I guess we could. So the suggestion is to maybe just to put it out for staff to review internally for 10 days. But 10 days would put us, it won't be on the next commission.
Well, I would just say do it. If we're just doing it for staff to review, I would say we could do it before the next committee meeting, I would imagine, and if somebody out there that's listening to me now has some major objection to this, they can email the commission through the website and say, this is my objection to this right now, and for y'all to review at the next commission meeting, I would say. Our email on the website.
What we propose doing, Commissioner Miller, is updating it with the changes as far as the review and reconsideration, putting it out for 5 days for internal review for staff. And then we could put it on the next commission meeting, which is June 17th. Yeah.
I have no objection to that if nobody on the committee does. I'm going to assume we don't have an objection to that unless I hear something. That sounds good to me. To put it out for 5 days of review internally, and like I say, it gives anybody listening right now 5 days to email us if they have a particular objection. I can't imagine what they would have, but so I would say that sounds good to me. If if there's no objection, that's what we're gonna do. And I assume we should not need a motion if we're doing it by, doing it the way the committee normally does it. So if I don't hear any objection in the next about 10 seconds, I'm gonna just say that that's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna do what Constance said and put it out for 5 days of internal review and then bring it to the commission for final approval. With that revision of a review by the executive director of the commission. So the next item on the agenda and the next section on the agenda is section 2, which is referral to other committees. We don't have a referral to another committee right now. And so there's none of those at this time either. And so the next item is referral to staff for review or revision, and that is part of tab 2, which is I'm assuming the TV policy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Susan?
Yes.
Then we're just reviewing the TV policy. I've read through this again. Excuse me. God dang, if I could talk, it'd be better. If we reviewed this policy last in August. I know there are some minor revisions that Susan and those want to make to this policy, and so I would just say that we need to bring this to staff for their recommendations, unless somebody has an objection to that. I don't see anything special in here that needs to change from what I've read. Do you want to give us one quick example of what you want to change about this policy, Susan, whenever y'all bring it to staff?
Sure. This directive just needs another thorough review based on some additional information we've been receiving from DHEC on the operations side of the agency. Namely, we want to make sure the applicability types for service types for direct service providers are accurate. Based on the last revision, we think we've just got to take another look at that and make sure it's clear. And then the language is clear about testing versus screening. So there are some instances when actual testing is necessary. And then there are the other situations where just kind of a discussion screening, kind of like reviewing a list of symptoms is warranted instead of testing or retesting. So operations staff just asked that we give them an opportunity to kind of look at that in light of those sorts of changes, and that they are able to update it so it's current.
Okay, again, if nobody has any objection, we're going to move this on to the staff for review and to bring before the commission. I would assume in a month from now, correct, Susan?
I think so, yes.
Anyway,
It would not be June. It's not be June because we don't have any edits done yet.
Right, so it would be at least July, but more than likely July, maybe August, but either way. So so we'll be looking out for that after the staff gets done with it. Is there please let me know if there's any objection to that. If I don't hear any, we're going to move on with this one too, to bring it to staff. If you have an objection, please say so we can discuss it further and have a formal vote and all that. Okay, the TV policy moves on to staff for review and to bring to the committee, to the commission whenever they are ready to bring it. The next item on the agenda is the final item on the agenda, which is the next commission meeting is scheduled for July 13th. So is there any other business that needs to come before this committee before we adjourn? Please let me know now. I don't have any either, and so I'm going to entertain a motion that we adjourn. I think we're done for today.
I'm going to adjourn, Chairman.
Okay, I do need a motion and a second for that. So we had a motion to adjourn, so we need a second. Or I'll make a second. I just seconded. We're adjourned. So we're done. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for being a part for those who are listening.